Hello. So this video is going to cover the week 1 assignment, specifically how to navigate and how to complete either your librarian or guidance counselor interview. So for this project, you'll need to interview either your disciplinary librarian or guidance counselor in order to find answers to the research questions that are posed in bullet point under the project 1 description. So as we covered in a previous video, there are these bullet points that ask you to identify 6 characteristics of your discourse community, define the common goals, and so on and so forth. So the interview is going to be one step in doing that. Remember that the person you interview will only have answers to some of those bullet points. So if you interview a librarian, they'll definitely have answers to possibly major research topics, right? They'll probably maybe have an idea of the different types of writing or research that's published in your field. They might have some ideas about where publications are shared or kind of databases and journals and so forth, right? But they may not have the major types of communicative practices. They certainly won't know often the common goals, um, or they may have just a general sense of the contemporary major topics, but not in detail. So your interview is only going to be one piece of the puzzle. You'll have to eventually go and conduct uh, secondary research, which is going to websites and journals or your own kind of discipline-specific research guide in order to find some of the other questions listed for Project 1. And so here I've given you some links that will help you with this. So here at Wayne State, we have a research guide for students. And so for pretty much for every single discipline, there is a research guide for students to be able to go in and start to see the types of research tips and additional support that might be uh, available for students. And so say we were to go into Bio 4120, or that's a little bit too specific, right? So biological sciences, that's like more of the larger overarching. So what it's going to do for you is it's going to list for you top databases that are used within for research. So databases house quite large selections of journals and articles. So a database system such as PubMed is not a journal, it's a database system that houses various types of journals that have published medical kinds of research, right? They'll also provide you with maybe a list of top types of biological sciences books or materials, online biology journals, so they'll list out very specific journals. So whereas in the database, that's going to house a multitude of journals. If you want to go into a very one specific journal like Biology General, that's only one journal, okay? Encyclopedias or other types of websites, right? The Biology Project is a really cool and interactive resource. And then they'll have some other different types of resources for you or courses that are linked specifically to the biological sciences. The other interesting portion is that you have your own librarian. So this person, Heather Perrone, is the librarian for biological sciences and is somebody that you can contact once we start doing some more in-depth research to talk about where to find research, how to use specific types of research terminology and so forth in order to kind of find what you're looking for. All right, so now that we've covered that portion of the library reference guides, we're going to go into another area of support. So if you're looking to conduct an interview with your advisor, I provided a link right here for you to set up scheduling. And so this should send you directly to a location where you log in with your Access ID and password, and then it'll send you to a site for you to log into the library, or I'm sorry, to the advisor that you're assigned to. One thing that I do want to cover in a little bit more detail is if you are deciding to interview your advisor or a professor in the field, you certainly need to make sure that you are sending an email that is succinct and professional. So this is something that you need to start practicing not only for this assignment, but also for pretty much any professional emails that you send along. And so you'll see here that I've given you some tips for formal email conventions. So when you write a professional email, writers should pay close attention to the intended audience and the audience expectations and conventions of a professional email. So when you're writing to somebody, it always depends on who the audience is, right? If it's a professor and you're requesting additional time for assignment, you have a particular tone of voice and particular kinds of like approaches to requesting that. If you're sending an email and to somebody in your field and requesting some type of interview or additional support, then you have to navigate that differently as well. I have listed out some key tips that you need to be able to keep in mind when writing a professional email. A clear and focused subject line is of utmost importance. I receive around 200 to 300 emails a day. So if I don't know who you are, and I don't know the purpose for your email, it's probably going into like my junk, spam, or to do later list. So who are you? What course or where are you from? And what is your request, right? I need to see that, and so does anybody else who's a professional. Formal salutations. Please don't just say, hey, Jewel, or Jules, or Julie. My name's Jewel, Professor Thomas, right? You don't want to be sending, again, audience, right? Assume that when you're sending an email that the person would like you to be as formal as possible and then see what happens. I need to know right away, what is this purpose for this email about? What are you emailing me for or requesting or so forth? For this email, it would be, you should have tell us the main goal for the email, which would be I'm requesting an interview for English 3010 in order to ask the following questions, right? Then I chose you for the interview. Why was the recipient chosen? I chose you for the interview because you were somebody that I took prior, or you're my advisor, and I know that you would have answers to these particular questions. Again, what specific questions will be asked? You cannot ask them all the questions listed under the project one description bullet points. Only questions that you know that they, as the audience, could answer, right? How long will the interview last? Give them a hint. It's only going to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to discuss these 5 questions. When the interview must be completed, you need to very, very clearly let them know that I need to have this done within this time frame. I'm willing to meet with you online, in person, through email, whatever it might work for them, right? Request that they answer yes or no by a specific date. That gives you time to then find somebody else or contact me if you're unable to get an interview. Indicate that you will answer any questions or concerns that are sent from the interviewee. They might have questions for you about really the nature of this or other things. Then you must thank the recipient for considering your request. Don't just end the email. Thank them in advance for their potential willingness to help. And then this is incredibly, incredibly important, and something that I see students failing to do constantly. You should always be the last person to respond to an email if you have less hierarchy or authority than the person you're sending this to. So if you send a professor a request for information or a link or a source, and that professor sends it to you, and then you ghost them, did you receive the email? Was that helpful? Did you need anything else? And it's also very disrespectful. And so unless it gets ridiculous where you say, thank you so much, the professor says, you're very welcome, and then you're like, no, again, thank you so much. That's a little ridiculous, right? But you need to send a response that says, thank you so much for sending this, or thank you for clarifying, or whatever it may be. You are the lower man on the totem pole, therefore you should be the last to respond. All right, so there's the email. Another quick resource that you might think about using as you're trying to answer some of the questions Under the bullet points for project 1 that you may not find from your interview is the Gale Encyclopedic resource. And so here you can log in, and it is an encyclopedia. And so this is really nifty and something that kind of is listed in various different types of like subcategories. But essentially what you can do is like search up, say, biological sciences, and it's going to give you a topic overview. So if you click on this, it's going to give you an overview of what is biological sciences. Where is it? Where is it? I think I have to do the right. This is fairly lengthy. For instance, say you were going to look into nursing education and you wanted to get a quick overview, you could go and look up nursing education, and then it'll give you a definition of what nursing education is, description of it, kind of like this historical overview of it, and then the different types of degrees that you can get, from advanced nurse practitioners to LPNs, and then talk a little bit about if nursing shortage, viewpoints about curriculum or long distance learning, professional implications, and so forth. So this is going to give you a really nice condensed and short overview of the field, of some top topics, kind of nodes of information or knowledge or goals, and so on and so forth. So certainly very useful for you to find some of the information that you may not gather from your interview, but you still need, right? So between your research guide, reference guide, and the Gale Virtual Reference Library, you will have at your disposal 2 nice places for you to go and find information. And then I've listed right here a quick overview and examples of discourse communities for you to help with the Swales reading. And so really this is just a very nice quick read that kind of breaks down Swales' somewhat dense kind of key characteristics like 1 through 6. And we talked about that in a prior video, but again, it'll kind of talk you through what does it mean by participatory mechanisms. It'll give you kind of like a more layman's term of some of those key characteristics for you as you're thinking through project 1 and how you're going to respond to those characteristics when you go and start looking and interviewing and researching. All right, so I think we're all set with that. I will talk with you next time on the next video.